Good afternoon and welcome to FBI-LEEDA's webinar series. We are committed to advancing the science and art of leadership for law enforcement. These webinars are designed to promote the exchange of information to improve law enforcement practices during a time of crisis when our physical classes have been placed on hold. All webinars will be recorded for future viewing and posted to the FBI-LEEDA website. Certificates of participation will be emailed to all Zoom registered attendees, along with any related presentation materials. These webinars are currently not post certified. Please visit fbi-leeda.org for the most up-to-date webinar information. Each webinar is an average of 1 hour long and takes place on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time throughout the month of May. Today, our Director of Curriculum, Dr. Neil Moore, will be joined by two of our own FBI-LEEDA instructors, Mary O'Connor, as well as Terri Wilfong, to discuss diversity and women in policing. Without further ado, Dr. Neil Moore.
To our webinar series. Neil Moore here, Director of Curriculum and Instruction for FBI-LEEDA. We've got a great topic today, and we're going to use a slightly different format. You're not going to see quite as many PowerPoints. It's going to be a discussion primarily between our two very important and favorite instructors on the issue of diversity and women in policing, always contemporary issues for us. So that said, let me introduce our panelists today. The first is Mary O'Connor. I think you may see her as the woman with the white background, and she's in the bottom part of the screen. Mary is a 22-year veteran of law enforcement and most recently served as the Assistant Chief of Operations at the Tampa, Florida Police Department, where she retired in 2016. As she worked her way through the ranks, her assignments included patrol, investigations, criminal intelligence, field training, narcotics, and economic crimes. In the years leading up to her retirement, Mary was instrumental in the development and implementation of new technology that assisted officers in the field to have situational awareness of real-time data that helped them solve crimes quickly and collaboratively. Mary has a bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida, go Bulls, and a Master of Business Administration from St. Leo University. She's the previous vice president and a current special advisor to the board of directors for NALI, the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. Our other panelist today is Terri Wilfong. Terri has 33 years of law enforcement experience. She served in the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, the Kentucky State Police, the Jefferson County Police. In 2003, the Jefferson County Police Department and the Louisville Division of Police were merged into the new Louisville Metro Police Department. Terri was promoted to the rank of Assistant Chief as part of the first executive command staff of that newly created organization. Terri has served as chair of the Crime Prevention Committee with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, along with the Southern Institute Police Alumni Association as the national treasurer. Following her stay with LMPD, she was named the Chief of Police for the city of Greenville, South Carolina, and she served in that capacity from 2007 to 2014. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Justice Administration and a Master's degree in Justice Administration, both from the University of Louisville, go Cardinals, okay? And she is a graduate of the Southern Police Institute 95th Administrators course. And with that, welcome two of our favorite FBI-LEEDA instructors. Many of you have had our colleagues here in class, and so it's very exciting for me to be able to talk to them this way and to talk about this really critical topic. So I'm going to jump right in. Okay, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, first question to get us going here: how can diversity in policing as a profession be increased? Who wants to take that on?
I can start with it if you guys are okay with that. I think that our organizations, we need to reflect the communities that we serve. We always talk about that, but how are we going about to be able to achieve that? And the more diverse that your organization is, I think the more contacts, the more relationships you can build within your communities, because your communities see that the police department reflects who they are. Also, I think that it also relays with your recruitment efforts. Is if you see diversity in the organization. It's like, you know what, I saw an officer of color, or I saw a female officer. So that gives me hope that I can someday get on that agency as well. Mary, your thoughts?
I think that it's important to stress that diversity goes way beyond, just race. I think that we need to address the different ethnicities within our communities as well. There's a lot of different pockets of new, ethnicity communities within our communities that our police departments need to strive to have officers that reflect those communities as well. So those community members feel a lot more comfortable, reporting crime and more comfortable with accessing law enforcement services.
Okay. Now, you both served at really high levels in your respective organizations, okay? Is there any mechanism that police administrators at your respective ranks use to try to stay on top of what type of communities are in the service area? Are there any mechanisms that we can point to that help us there?
Yeah, Neil, I think that, first of all, you have to measure, you have to track data. You have to see who is moving into our communities. And the other thing you should do is tap into officers that want to serve in like liaison positions to those communities, like, Hispanic liaison positions, or, LGBTQ liaisons, homeless liaison officers. There's a lot of opportunity there to tap into your current talent and, spread that throughout the community.
Okay. Do you look for something on an annual basis that helps you monitor the migration of new population groups into your respective service areas?
I think that's something you need to do, is reaching out. I mean, look at the organizations that cities have. I mean, your convention center, knowing different groups moving in. If you have one thing in Louisville that we have a very large Catholic archdiocese, and they would bring refugees from different war-torn countries into the community as having contacts, so you have an idea who's moving in. The other thing is your officers that work on the street every single day is to let them have input. They're out there amongst the community and they know what groups are moving in and who's there. Is always make sure that you get their input, because they basically, they have their thumb on the pulse of what the community consists of. Okay,
all right. And I know we'll probably bounce around about the general topic of diversity off and on. Let me kind of shift gears just a little bit, okay? Now, I'm an old guy. I did my police chief work in 1997 or 1988 to 1997. And one of the things that I knew about my department was we hovered at about 12%. Our workforce had about 12% women, okay? Now, that's in the, all those years ago. I mean, we thought that was pretty good. But here we are. I mean, we fast forward. We're now in the 21st century, okay? I'm some 20 plus years past my entry years as police chief. And when I look at the women in policing numbers, I see them still hovering at 12 to 13%. What the heck's going on?
Go ahead, Mary.
Quite a bit. I mean, obviously, I think that there's just a general trepidation about getting into the profession for a multitude of reasons. I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown. I think one of the biggest reasons is, women don't necessarily think that the job is as service-driven as it really is. I think that television portrays the job to be extremely physically taxing and demanding, and really a lot of what women can do in the profession is, like I said, giving back to their communities in a lot of different ways than what you traditionally see police officers do. Terry, what do you think?
I think that has a lot of part to do with, but a lot of them, they don't really understand what law enforcement does. They see things on the news, and unfortunately in today's times, the media is not supporting law enforcement in any way whatsoever, which we know. But I think a lot of that really is, what is the agencies doing in regard to that? I mean, they need to get out into the communities. They need to advertise themselves and who they are and what they're about. Basically looking at, for instance, just their website of what their police department is. Do they have a video showing everything that the agency has, other than, we want to show the SWAT team, but we're showing other aspects, community service. What does the agency consist of? And I'm going to do one thing that we did when I was a chief in Greenville is diversity. We wanted to get that. And we did a recruitment poster, and we had very diverse officers on the poster. And my proudest day is when a university in South Carolina held up the poster of our police department and said, this is what we want our agencies in South Carolina to look like. I was very proud, and I didn't come up with that idea. One of the officers inside the agencies did. You have to show who you are and what you're about. And I think it really needs to start maybe in high school. I think the school resource officers, if we have them involved, that they understand what law enforcement is and how they can give back. And me, it's in my blood because I am third generation and my son is fourth. So I grew up in this world. So I always had the greatest respect because I grew up with cops around my house all the time. So it was nothing new for us. And I didn't have the fear of what law enforcement was. But then, of course, I had a father that said, if you want to do it, go for it. So I had a lot of support in that aspect.
We actually have a question that just came in, if that's okay.
Sure.
Sure.
Says, do you have any advice to motivate females to take promotional exams / spots? Many seem content at lower level, and the command levels are definitely lacking in representation.
Oh, there's a lot there. One thing that I would suggest is you got to know the culture of the organization as to why people won't take promotional exams. And I mean, Mary and I are out there teaching classes, and I have a lot of females come up to me and say, I want to get promoted, but I know there's no chance I'll ever get promoted. The good old boy system still occurs. They're concerned about, will they have support? If they get promoted, you know, would they be put in a position where they're kind of like put away in an area of the agency that they really don't have the same as if they're in the patrol division. So it's a multitude aspect of it, but I think the best thing we can do is that we have officers inside is mentoring. Mary, I don't know, I'm sure you did, but I had a lieutenant, a male lieutenant, when I was an officer said, you need to get promoted. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, look, you need to do this. You need to pave the way for others. You can do it. And I'm here to support you. And he pushed me. I thought at first, I thought I really don't want to do this, but I didn't want to let him down. And I was really proud because when I did take the exam, I did get promoted. Mary, your thoughts?
I just think that women need to have the courage to take that chance. You know, I think that a lot of it is a lack of self-confidence and a lack of, you know, wondering what the future holds. And if they just take that promotional exam and take the risk and get promoted, to really have those mentors and those leaders in the organization, you know, nurture that and explain to them that they are paving the way, Terry, and the way they are, you know, showing the younger generation of officers coming on that they can do it too. I just think that, you know, when you get that rank, you should really try to make yourself be a role model, you know, and really kind of encourage officers, female officers, to do the same.
I agree.
Okay. What about, I mean, just generally, the rank question is always an interesting one because, I mean, the numbers that I routinely see say that we hover in that 12 to 13% range for women in most organizations from a national perspective. Obviously, we've got pockets that are doing better, some doing worse. But what is it that either makes just coming in, just thinking about a young woman, thinking about being a police officer, what really stands in the way? I mean, are we not reaching out in the right places? Or are there some cultural things that almost look like hurdles or barricades that stop young women from considering this profession?
A little bit of both, Neil.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Terri.
No, go. I think it's a little bit of both what Mary was talking about, but also I want to look at the hiring practices that they have, the standards that they have, like the physical requirements. Are they really requirements that are needed? We know that's changed. There's been a lot of lawsuits throughout the United States because these standards were ridiculous. I remember one, we had to do this vertical jump, and I'm like, why are we doing that? And it's like, well, you got to push a car. I'm like, well, then why can't we just push a car? So that the standards are in place and the testing that's giving for the physical requirements really match the job. I mean, you talk to officers, and when I'm out there, you know, teaching the classes, like, when's the last time you scaled a 6-foot wall? When's the last time you did 24 push-ups before you made an arrest? You know, that could be the first barrier. Other than, I would like agencies that, when I was a chief, we did this in place, is that we had the physical requirements and we would let people come out and we would train anybody that wanted to come to become on the department. We would train them and give them and access to the obstacle course that they had to pass. So they had to put the effort in that if you want to do this, here it is, this is how we do that. I think if agencies do that, the first fear of I won't meet the physical requirements, I think that would be something they could overcome very quickly to get their foot in the door.
Sounds
I think
very reasonable. Good.
a lot of that really could be a push through internships and like volunteer opportunities as well. Like Terry is saying, you know, take the concept and the theory of the Citizens Academy and push that out to our educators and our local universities and schools and say, you know, come take a tour and be a cop for a day and see the different opportunities that are out there. Terry touched on it earlier about school resource officers, but you never know if you have a young lady that's going to be interested in being a canine officer or being one of the liaisons like I spoke of earlier, or even, you know, working on the traffic squad. I mean, I think a lot of the law enforcement profession is kind of, you know, bundled up into this perception that it's just, you know, being out on patrol, like Terry said, but really there's so much real development that can be done across different facets of the department.
I think we just had a question come in that is very relevant to what you're saying, Mary. After we clear the hurdles of recruitment and creating a diverse workforce, how do we ensure that people want to stay? Once we get them into that position, a lot of people don't want to be the only one.
Terry, why don't you start off with that one?
Sure. I think the main thing there is inclusion. We talk about diversity, but do we talk about inclusion? And where that, if you want to go in different aspects of the agency, you have the ability to be able to go into the detective division or different divisions that's there. The main thing is, how do we get people to stay? Well, that's going across every department throughout the United States. Is we have a younger generation that they get into the profession and they don't stay for long periods of time, unfortunately. And one aspect where I was talking to an individual that actually has an app in place, he says that law enforcement's recruiting wrong. You don't recruit people to stay for 35 and 25 years. They're not going to. You recruit for them to stay 3 to 5. I went, wow, that's a huge difference. He goes, well, do you want them for 3 to 5 years where you got them for a while? And then maybe once they're inside the organization, they enjoy it. They feel like they have value, where they're valued as a member of the agency. They feel that they're supported. I think a lot of that has with people that stay, and those of y'all been in classes with me know I say this consistently because I moved around law enforcement a lot, is people do not leave bad organizations, people leave bad leaders. And that's why they leave. And the bad leader could be that FTO, that sergeant, that lieutenant, and that captain. It's, do we have everybody on board? And that starts with the top.
Okay.
I think a lot of that also can help, Neil, with, you know, a lot of what we preach in the Leadership FBI-LEEDA Trilogy series is always going back to that mission statement and why you got into this profession from the beginning. You know, I think a lot of you know, obstacles get in the way that kind of lead people down the road of getting a little cynical, and they don't feel like they're valued anymore, like Terry said. And I think it's important for leaders in the organization to always reinforce the service-driven profession that we're in and why we wanted to get into this in the beginning, and kind of refresh that every now and again to keep people motivated and understanding, you know, why they come to work every day. I think that's a very important thing.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. What about the diversity of assignment that women get? When you get in a police department as a female officer, are there places that we pigeonhole women?
I worked for a sergeant years ago that would not send anybody to investigate a sex crime related offense unless it was me. And I realized very quickly that wasn't really the best practice. But, you know, I think those are few and far between these days. But I think it really goes way beyond, you know, just traditional domestic violence victims and, you know, and sex crimes victims. I think that, you know, women can be very innovative. And have, you know, very creative ways to solve problems, and putting them in different assignments throughout the department is key to diversity within the workplace, and also, you know, putting the round peg in the round hole and finding out, you know, what their strengths and weaknesses really are. Terry?
Well, I like to look at it this way, because I always ask, because you always get SWAT members in each class, and I always ask them, how diverse is your SWAT team? Do you have any women on your SWAT team? And most of the time, the answer is no. And my next question to them is why? Well, they don't apply. And I'm like, don't you think there's a reason as to why they wouldn't apply? Why don't you look into that, or your K-9 unit or your river unit? I was in Kentucky, of course, we're a state of horses, and we had quite a few women, which I was thrilled, in our K-9 unit and also in our mounted patrol unit. But like a motorcycle unit, which I read motorcycles or did, is, you know, why are they not in those different divisions? And that's going to be interesting is what the outcome could be. Is there an opportunity? Because there's good qualified people that can do good jobs if they're given the opportunity. But then the next question is there a boys club? Is there a clique that unless you're friends, you can't get in? And when I had to try to become a detective, and I was told, well, you don't have a sponsor. And two, if you really want to be a detective, you're going to have to learn how to play golf. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the job? But, you know, it was like a little clique was formed, and breaking that clique, and will you be accepted going in there? But I think a lot of this goes back to our commanding officers, is that they are willing to understand the importance of diversity in every aspect of the police department and the importance of it.
We actually just got a question or two that came in that I would love to add to this conversation. Usually women are assigned to juvenile, sex crimes, community crime prevention, or family violence. When women are in law enforcement or want to join, they are usually expected to act or be tough. Women think differently than men and handle situations differently. How do you get these officers and supervisors to take you seriously, and to Terri, to your point, without having to learn how to play golf? To see you in different ways that may work better than what they had thought in the past? Is that an area where they should be going to them directly? What tips and skills might they look into to help themselves and advocate?
Training.
Mary, you want to take that? Yeah.
I mean, I'll start off with it. I mean, I think training, I think the more you can diversify your portfolio, the better you're going to be, and the better you're going to be respected by your commanders and your peers. But you don't want to go to too much training either. You know, you also have to take a leadership role and an active role in, you know, being a leader within your own squads, you know, not being afraid to try new things, you know, getting out of that box of status quo and doing things a little bit differently, and showing that your innovative efforts, you know, can make a difference in whatever problem you're solving or trying to solve. Terri?
Well, I think a lot of times, especially when I had young women come into the department, I would tell them, look, you are not one of the boys. You'll never be one of the boys. Just be yourself. We don't want to turn our female officers into good men officers. That's not what we want. Is we want people to think differently. They have different aspects, different ideas, and different concepts, but they do so well in other areas of the department if you just give them an opportunity. So like your narcotics division is a perfect example. And I would tell commanders is, you know, you can get a female detective to get a door open much quicker than you could a male getting that door open, because even the public, they don't always think that a female would be an officer. Because I know when I was a Kentucky State Trooper, that applied a lot, because back then out of 1,000 troopers, there were only 11 of us that were women. And it's a lot of that is, you know, can you change the culture? And the other aspect is, you know, everybody has different opinions in different aspects of women in law enforcement. But I think we're very fortunate now is that this generation's now, your millennial generation, your Generation Z, it doesn't matter anymore. They're the most diverse generations we have, and they don't look at women being an obstacle, is they're equal to me. So I think in another maybe 10 years, I think the conversations we're having today, I hope they don't have in the future. I hope it won't matter anymore and it won't occur. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Terri, I think there's a lot of wisdom there. I've raised two millennials, and I can remember walking into the house as a police chief, and around the refrigerator it would look like the United Nations. And so there would be someone from every conceivable culture looking in that refrigerator to see what they were going to eat out of Mr. Moore's refrigerator, right? And it was so cool. And I think you're right on. I think the millennial generation and Gen Z, I think, are far more accepting of seeing more women in policing and seeing women in leadership roles. So I think you're onto something there. I do think that we will see that happen in our lifetime. So
Gosh, I hope
We'll
so.
let you know that we
Hope so.
did have a comment that apparently in the United Kingdom, there are diplomas run in colleges for individuals age 16 to 18 years old in services called uniform public services for those wishing to eventually become officers. It creates a good almost farm system, gives them insights into the job. Is that something that we do in the United States? And if not, do you think that agencies would benefit from partnering with colleges?
I think it'd be a great idea. I mean, we have Explorer programs,
Right.
which that's open up. I think that helps in that aspect to get them to be future cops or deputy sheriffs or whatever. But yeah, I think that would be a great opportunity. A lot of your colleges have a criminal justice or justice administration within the university that people get their majors in. I think that also opens the door, but I don't know, that's a thought. That could be something that could be pretty productive where agencies would partner with local universities and see, you know, possibly would that happen. Mary, I think Florida's doing a little bit more on that, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunity, not only at the university level, but even starting at a younger age. I mean, the Big Brothers Big Sisters program is huge.
Good idea.
I mean, I think we can, you know, tap into young girls as early as Girl Scouts. I mean, I remember I talked to my daughter's Girl Scout troop when I was still working and talked to them a little bit about law enforcement, and they loved that. You know, I think that if we can keep that going, even in an Explorer program for younger women, just to kind of give them those, you know, opportunities to develop their leadership, I think that, you know, that it would kind of, you know, very easily transition them into adulthood and stay interested in professions such as these.
yeah, I know that I think maybe we need to get a little more focused on going after the female candidate. You know, the UK is doing something much better than we are. I mean, when you look at their numbers, they're at about 28%
Oh,
from a
wow.
national perspective. I mean, they're kind of head and shoulders over us at this particular point in policing development. So, yeah, I think doing the targeted efforts would probably be very, very good. Talk to me about, I mean, we teach credibility in one of the blocks of our leadership training. And credibility seems to be built, at least in part, on consistent, authentic action. Is it critical, especially for women officers, that their actions speak louder than their words? Do they have to prove themselves at a rate far more significantly than their male counterparts?
Wow, that's a great question. I can tell you when I started, absolutely. It's not you do 100, it's 150 because you're under a microscope. Because I was one of those that Laura talked about being the only one where I was an agency of 500 and I was the only female sergeant. And I mean, the microscope was on me big time of what I did. I wish I could say that that still doesn't occur today. I've been out of the game a little bit longer than Mary has. And I want to get your thoughts, Mary, on that one.
I think it really depends on the culture of the organization and how willing a traditional law enforcement leader is to be accepting. I think that there's a lot of our leaders are feeding off of each other, and they don't want to be the one to kind of break out of that mold. And I think, you know, recognizing a female officer who may have done a good investigation or done something well, I think a lot of leaders may hold back on that stuff, and they really need to be encouraged and have encouraged to express themselves and say, you know, she's a good officer. I think that, you know, like everything in every law enforcement agency, we know reputations, you know, your reputation spreads, right? It's like, it's, you know, if you have the courage to recognize that a female is doing a good job, I think that point is going to spread around the organization, but it has to be that first step to do that.
Okay.
I do have a question that came in, and I think this is a challenging one. Do you believe that females in policing or anyone trying to maybe change a leader's mind has more of a chance of doing so, or looking for opportunities elsewhere? What is the better fight for them, to find a new position or to change a commander's mind?
I would start with trying to change the commander's mind.
Yeah.
That's my, I don't think we want to run from the problem. I think we want to face the problem head on. And I think that begins with clear communication. Neil, you mentioned the credibility piece. I think the more that we can be, credible with our leaders, whether there are, our subordinates, I think credibility and communication go hand in hand, and we need to be able to confront that issue and try to fix it before we just run from it. Terri, what do you think?
And I agree with that. Changing the mind, that could be a little difficult, but a lot of times I think it is that they really don't know you. And once you start building relationships and start building rapport and people get to understand who you are and what you're about, I think their mind changes because they see you for who you are, not who they think that you are. And a lot of that goes back to, Mary, you talked about reputation and that it follows you. And I think it's one of those that you're just going to have to keep building rapport. I mean, there's many times commanders I work for. I mean, I had one commander tell me he hated women and wanted to get rid of me. That's my first day in the job. What a great place. What a great place. But I proved him wrong because I worked really hard, just like my male counterparts did the same thing. So a lot of it is, do you have to prove yourself? Yes, but every rookie coming on the police department has to prove themselves.
That's true.
So I think a lot of it is building relationships, getting them to know you, but to leave, if you don't like the job, you're not happy, you're not looking for the future there, then maybe that might be a good choice. But I wasn't going to get run out. I was going to stay. And I'm glad I did because, I mean, I became a chief of police.
That's
Back
right.
when I was a young officer, never dreamed of that. But, I'll stand and fight because I'm not going to run.
Okay. All right.
Good answer, Terri.
We've
Thank
got
you.
some tough instructors here. Hey, Laura, do you have a poll that you can put up for us?
I do have a poll that I can put up.
What you got?
Okay. So the first one asks, what deters females from wanting to become police officers?
Okay, so that's a good multiple question.
That is good.
Choice. Yeah, okay, good.
Can we talk about pay for a moment?
Let's
Sure.
talk about pay.
Okay, because Mary and I were talking about this earlier. If you're in an organization where you have step raises, where it comes how many years on in time, I don't think pay becomes an issue because it's universal across and you have unions representation in that manner. I think where it might come in play, I really hope it doesn't, but possibly is when you have merit raises, where it's based on a supervisor does your evaluation and gives you points in some areas. That possibly could be a problem with pay. I hope it's not in this day and time, but I don't think it's what it was 15 or 20 years ago. But I could be wrong, depending on the department and the size. Merit raises, I could see it possibly could be an issue in that aspect with pay. Mary, you all did step raises and did you see that an issue at all?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, back in the day, we kind of got rid of that point system because, quite honestly, it's not effective.
Right.
I think that, pay in law enforcement is, probably going to be better today than it was 20 years ago because
yes.
it's, considered a much more professional profession. And,
Yes.
And depending on where you are in the country, I think the pay of officers is kind of in line with the demographics of the community and the cost of living and whatnot. So I think we're doing better in the pay department. Are we perfectly where we should be? I don't know. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's room for improvement all over.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, are you all seeing the results of the poll?
I am. Yes.
Now here, we're just starting this thing right off. Okay. So here you have 67% of the people watching this that are saying that the big hurdle seems to be because it's a male-dominated profession. So.
Yes.
So are we talking about this in such a way that are we talking the real need to change the culture? Is that where we are? Or what is it about a male dominant? Is it just so damn hostile that it turns women off?
It could be that. I'm going to go back to the media with the police shows, which I don't watch them, they're so stupid, or movies they show. But let's start looking at other professions that they have. where I'll give my daughter, for an instance, she's just graduated from graduate school. She would like to be a hospital administrator one day, male dominant field. Will
Right.
she be going through what I went through when I started? So I really think it depends on the profession that's more male dominant than it is female. But I would not let that be a deterrent because, all right, let's reverse it. Nurses, a really good friend of my daughter's is a male and he's a nurse. And that concept is, you're a nurse, you know, because I think it's more of a female profession. So I don't know if that, I think that goes back to culture, but I think that also goes back to society, where you look at a profession where that's more male than female or vice versa. But I think it's changing in some aspects. But unfortunately, the media or the television shows or the movies is a lot of times people think that's what law enforcement's really about. It's not cops and robbers, you know, and we shoot 5 people and we, you know, we go home for the day. It's more of a service, interaction, community engagement, working with people, helping people solve issues and problems. Is they don't really understand what the profession consists of.
Right.
Mary, what's your thought on that?
Well, I think just based on the sheer numbers alone of number 2, you know, so there's 12% full-time female officers in the United States. It kind of, you know, supports the data that it is a male-dominated profession,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
you know, what do? Well, we have to, you know, like you said, Terry, I really think that this stigma of law enforcement being that you're just, you know, you're getting into physical altercations or you're, you know, all day long is just kind of something that we got to steer away from. How do we do that? Recruitment, you know, retention. We talked about retention earlier. I think it's really important that we do, you know, exit interviews or we do routine surveys. You know, during a random week, let's just put out an employee survey and see how people are feeling about things. I think a lot of the men in the profession would actually agree with the fact that women, you know, are hesitant to promote or hesitant to diversify themselves within. And, you know, let's try to engage the men in the department to change that, you know, and you know, bring each other up. I mean, I say it in my classes all the time that, you know, we need each other. You know, we start turning on each other and, you know, the whole profession is going to fail. So I think we need to kind of see it as a team approach as well.
Okay. Let me ask another question that has to come from a woman's perspective. Is there such a thing as women bullies in policing? Do they exist in the police organization?
Go ahead, Terry. I know you want to jump on that one.
Really? Bullies exist everywhere. I don't think it really matters what the gender is, but I bring this up in every class especially when I have women's in the class, is that, and I'm going to call it what it is the queen bees. Unfortunately, we have them in every profession.
Yep.
And they do not support other women, which to this day, I still don't understand. So I tell all the women in the classes, I said, who are you mentoring? What do you mean? I want you mentoring someone. I want you mentoring another female in your department and help them achieve and move up the ladder as you go. That's what we should be doing rather than ostracize and not helping each other out. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have. Mentorship is so crucial inside organizations. My department started one where every new officer coming in had a mentee or a mentor rather, and it wasn't the FTO, it was someone else. And we first launched it, it's like, oh, nobody's going to want to do it. We had more mentors than we had mentees. They're like, I wish I had this. I want somebody that when I have a stupid question, I can go ask and I won't be made fun of and the whole department won't know about it. And it was very successful. I hope they're still doing it. But I think that's so important, is supporting each other, and other women inside the organization need to support each other. And when they see young women come in, it's to support them, reach out to them and help them move along the way. Because as I teach in class, the position that you have, you rent it, you don't own it. Your job is to train and teach other people how to take the job you currently have. And if we take that concept and we actually do it, I think it's going to help the profession so much better.
Okay.
I mean, I have a question that just came in. Are there additional networking organizations that you would recommend, especially for female officers who are looking to advance their careers?
There's a number of national women's related organizations. The one that Neil mentioned at the beginning that I've been affiliated with for many years, NAWLE, which is the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. I think if you did a little bit of research, a lot of states have individual female related organizations that kind of are, dedicated to providing mentoring and providing, professional development opportunities. So I think that, a lot of those organizations exist. We just kind of have to seek them out, and we have to be committed to, to their mission and what they are trying to do.
Also, you have IACP, you have a Women's Leadership Institute that I used to be an instructor for them. That's another caveat that's there. They're out there. A lot of them I would start locally, because you could have local chapters inside whatever state you're in, or a state chapter to be able to join. I think that would be important, and just become a member of that and reach out to other women for support, I think would be very helpful.
We had a great question just come in. If there is a way to offer benefits to part-time officers, what would you suggest to an agency? This individual thinks women might become more involved as officers if they could do a 12-hour shift, so it wasn't as hard on their bodies, and it's a great way for women to become a part of the agency and not having to give up their family life or their opportunity as a caregiver. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. I think it goes back to your question in your poll of what deters them from the beginning, and fear came in second at 31%. So it's fear that they're not going to be able to have that time with their families, or have the traditions, celebrate birthdays, holidays, etc. And we need to be committed as, current law enforcement leaders to be able to try to provide that flexibility where we can. Obviously, I know that, that's just part of the job, and you come on and you have to work adverse shifts and holidays and weekends and whatnot. But I believe that if there is flexibility opportunities, we need to take advantage of them, not only for female officers. There's a lot of single dads out there also that need that help. So, I think that, a lot of companies nowadays are like, working from home, not that law enforcement can work from home, but there's just a lot of creative ways, I think, a lot of things they can do to make the profession and the grueling hours and shifts a little bit more attractive. Terri, what do you think?
Well, I find that a lot more agencies are going to a 10-hour shift or to a 12-hour shift. They're long days, but you have more off time than you do on time, and I think that's helpful. Other things I would look at is the type of policies they have in place. When, somebody has a child, and at the time that they have off, and daycare is another aspect. You've got some agencies that I've talked with, they have specific daycares that are set up where law enforcement officers, that's where they take their children, and they have access to that. But that's a big support between the community, a daycare center, and of course your agency. But, we always talk about family comes first, but do we really mean that? Because, Mary, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because there's many men that are single parents also, and still have the daycare issue of, I have a problem, I can't come to work, my babysitter didn't show up, or something happens. Do we support our members inside our organization in regard to that, rather than saying, well, that's just the job and that's just the way it is? And if that's the philosophy, that's when you see people leave your organizations.
Okay. Let me shift gears just a second, okay? So I'm a police chief, and we're hovering around at this 12, 13%. So what's in it for my agency? Why in the hell should I hire more women officers? What benefit do I get from hiring more women officers?
Trust.
With whom, Mary?
The community. Those are your stakeholders.
Okay.
Period. I mean, the community has to see that, that you are willing and you're committed to mirroring the communities that you're serving. You have to engage them in order to get their trust. And I think hiring more women officers and diversifying your force is going to increase that trust.
Okay.
Terri.
Yeah, I was just reading some articles not long ago in regard to that, and there's some research, there is statistical data that's showing that female officers' use of force significantly lower than men.
Right.
Complaints.
Was that just because they're soft? They can't get the job done? They're soft? Come on.
No.
I think it's because they use other aspects than fist. It's one of those that I always tell people, you can talk your way in and out of a fight very, very quickly. And it goes back to that women have better communication skills than men. Not all, but in some aspect, in that aspect where we don't go to the fist. We don't have that ego going on in the very beginning. Also, you go back to this. Hopefully that's still happening, where young boys are taught, you don't hit your sister, you don't hit your mother, that we still have that philosophy. Not in all, but that philosophy in that aspect, where women have more engagement, they have better people skills, communication skills, and we don't go to the fist as quickly. Not in all instances, but the data has shown in that aspect and that we have that. I mean, I can give examples where I arrested an individual. I didn't know who the guy, what big guy too. I didn't know he was a big police fighter. You know, I lock him up, he's drunk. Put him in the holdover facility at the police department. I'll go back on my beat 20 miles away, and I get code to come to the substation as quick as I can. I get in there, and two guys and their uniforms are ripped. I'm like, what's going on? You locked up so-and-so. He's a known police fighter. So I go back to the holdover, yell his name, like, what are you doing? He goes, they disrespected me. I'm not going to put up with this. And I ended up taking him down to the jail because he wouldn't go with them. So I think all that ties in. Now, not in all aspects, that can still go the other way. But statistics have shown that, and you got male officers too, that we know they can talk themselves in and out of everything, and they're explicit at it. And a lot of it goes to that. But the statistics have shown the use of force is down. Trust with the community, as Mary said, because you look at the United States, 50% of the United States are women. Why do our agencies not reflect the culture and the communities that we serve? And how do we go about achieving that? I think that's the biggest one.
Okay. I read an article not too long ago that talked about targeted recruiting. Okay, now let me just throw a couple ideas past you. There are about 38 predominantly women's colleges in the United States. Okay. There are essentially women's athletic teams at every major university. If I needed more women in my police department, or if I just want to drive the number up, okay, to diversify and have a much better police department that reflects the community I serve, what do you think about sending recruiting teams to predominantly women's colleges, or to going to major universities and recruiting right out of the women's athletic programs that are on those campuses? What do you think about those two strategies?
I like it, and I'll just start with that and then kick it back to you, Terry. I think that women that are involved in athletics and sports have already nurtured like a teamwork mentality, and I think that teamwork and police work is kind of synonymous, which doesn't always accurately reflect in our agencies. But I think that starting at the athletic department and the predominantly female colleges is great, because they've already established that bond. And if you can carry that teamwork mentality into your profession, it's a win-win for us.
Okay.
I agree. I agree with that. Also, you know, we have to consider the military. I mean, there's a lot of women in the military, and I think that's another avenue of recruitment, because I mean, my agency was very close to Paris. I tell people, not France, and to get people inside the organizations. But let's look at people inside our organizations. What are they doing to recruit other people outside? Because I tell people, you're going to recruit the person that's going to be your beat partner. So they also need to be doing that. Some agencies do this, that if you do a recruitment of an officer to be hired in and they're hired, they get some type of incentive. Might not be a lot, but it could be something. So we have to look inside our organizations. They need to be also out there recruiting other people to be members inside the department. They just can't put everything on the sheriff and everything on the chief. They need to also to participate in that, because it's their agency as well.
That's a good point, Terry. I mean, these officers are out there, you know, going to neighborhood watch meetings every single night. Are they talking to the neighborhood watch about how their sons and daughters should join our organization? I mean, if they're proud of their organizations, they should be spreading it. You know, another interesting place that I think we need to kind of tap into is our faith-based community. I think we, you know, our pastors and our local faith-based community leaders can, you know, express the need to, you know, to recruit in, you know, different church services. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think that you're right. You can't fall only on personnel or only on the chief. It really needs to be owned by everybody in the agency.
Mm-hmm.
Are we past the point where we just put the ad in the newspaper or on our website and sit back and wait for these good candidates to come in? Are we past that?
Oh, definitely. You can't sit back and wait. You have to be proactive and be out there doing that. The website helps. I mean, social media is crucial, because we always ask people when we hired in, how did you find us? How do you know about it? I mean, are you doing stuff on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? Are you out there? Does your website show what your agency consists of? And here's a perfect example. I had a 24-year-old millennial public information officer who was phenomenal. He came up with Day with a Cop. And what he did is ride with an officer and videotaped it. And we put it out, the story of the week, riding with that officer. And it was phenomenal. So very diverse. I mean, make sure you ride with everybody in the department, make it very diverse in that aspect. People loved it because they could see live action. Of course, we knew how to blur faces and license plates. Very well receptive to that. You have to be pro out there and advertise who you are and what you're about. If you sit back and wait, they're not coming.
Okay. Okay.
We have to be willing, Neil, also to, to offer up relocation. If we can be creative with some funding for relocation, we can tap into other areas of the country as well. I mean, in the days of crisis that we're in right now in our profession and the numbers of people not really wanting to apply, we're going to have to really think outside the box to get them to want to join.
Well, which brings up another critical question, Mary, is, okay, so I want to be a cop, or I think I want to be a cop, and I'm a woman, and all of a sudden this COVID-19 thing hits, and I look around and police women and policemen are still moving through my community. They don't have any choice. They have to go answer the calls. So is that a deterrent now for recruiting women? What do you think? It's
probably a deterrent for recruiting everybody to a certain extent. It goes back to the mission, and it goes back to us explaining why we need them to join our ranks. Because the people in the community need your service, and they need your caring and your dedication to serving the community. So I think that really going back to the law enforcement code of ethics and the reason why we serve our communities is critical in times like this.
Okay.
Terri?
I think that the COVID-19, that's going to have an effect on everybody. You talk now, I mean, how many people want to go in the medical field right now? I mean, they're on the front line doing all that. I got my son-in-law as a paramedic, and we worry with him out there. But it's one of those, it's a call for service. Do you want to serve your community? Do you want to be part of that? I mean, I've lived through tornadoes where devastation in our community, you got to go to work. I mean, when disasters happen, you're at work and that's what you do. But it's one of those, you want to serve your community and you want to help people. It might have an impact on a little bit now, but we have to look at the economy. Let's go back to 2008, for example, because I was the police chief then. 2008, the economy was suffering and a lot of people couldn't find jobs. We had no openings. I mean, we filled every position that we had because degrees they had, they couldn't get a job, fields they wanted to go into, but we were still hiring. Hopefully our economy won't be bad and we won't go back to that. But as we know, when the economy goes down and law enforcement can hire, people will come in. Then the biggest factor you have then is how do you hold on to them? How do you retain them once the economy becomes better? So that's going to be something I would say once this COVID-19 gets under control within the next 3 to 5 years, I think you're going to possibly see more people going into law enforcement because they're the ones hiring.
Okay. All right. Now, I haven't talked about this with either of you. Okay. I'm going to pose a question that I want both of you to try to answer. Okay.
Sure.
So we've spent almost an hour talking about, especially women in policing. Okay. Mm-hmm. From each of your individual perspectives, if you were the master police chief for the day, and you were given all the resources that you could have, what steps would you take to increase the number of women in policing? And Terri, I'm going to start with you.
Well, thank you, Neil. Wow, that's a great question. All the resources that you have.
What steps would you take to get more police women in this profession?
Let's start from the beginning. We talked about that. Your recruitment efforts, I think, are huge. One thing I would like to be able to put into place is that having people come in where they can ride with an officer to get real life experience. I think that helps. It's reaching out to the community as much as you can, different organizations, the colleges, the universities, we talked about that. Your school resource officers is launching more where you can spend more time out in your recruitment and talking about who you are and what you're about. Your neighborhood meetings. I think that's the biggest thing is reaching far more out there. I would like to see some agencies are actually doing this now. I know you're made aware of that. They have signing bonuses now.
Yeah.
Where if you join the agency, I know California's doing that, you get a signing bonus. Now you got to stay 2 or 3 years to meet that commitment. But when I got in law enforcement, there were grants out there where I got a grant for college that paid my tuition, and I had to spend 5 years in law enforcement to wipe away that bill, which, you know, I stayed 33 years, which is still hard to believe. But I think that's part of it, is that basically it starts from the top. And I think I had a plus being a female chief, that people were like, I didn't even know there were women chiefs out there. And I think that in my command staff that was so diverse is that I think that these young people can see I can be part of that, because I already see these people within this organizations. I don't see just strictly male dominant and I can't be part of it. So I go back to it starts at the top, and having everybody involved, and going out into your roll calls and telling your officers, we have got to get the agency to reflect our community. I need your help. I need your help to do that. Mary talked about your faith base is meeting with your pastors and chaplains and say, we need to be part of the community. Help us get there. What can you do to get us there?
Okay. Mary, what would you do? What steps would you take to get more women into this noble profession?
Well, I think everything that we've talked about today, you know, all the different innovative ways and creative ways to recruit and retain. But I think the biggest thing that's to point out here is the commitment to it. So I think we start too many programs, and we have really good ideas, and then they fall to the wayside. And I think that we need to stay committed to increasing these numbers in our profession, and following up, you know, finding out how, finding out how the recruitment efforts are going, finding out how that neighborhood watch meeting went. Were you able to talk to the pastors today? Were you able to go to the Boys and Girls Club and talk to the young ladies about, you know, policing? What kind of feedback you got? You know, there has to be a real commitment internal to this, and it can't just be a fly-by-night effort.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, Laura, you've got the last big screen up here. Hey, just a couple of thoughts here. First of all, I want to thank Terri and Mary, two of my favorite FBI-LEEDA instructors. Absolutely, they're two of our best. What a joy having them here. And so, thank you very much, both of you, for being here and spending an hour with the FBI law enforcement family, which is what most of these folks are. If you haven't made it to an FBI-LEEDA class, I highly encourage you. When we get these things advertised and back up again, we want to see all of you in those classes. And I'm going to leave you with a final comment here, and then I want to talk about next week. But the comment I want to leave you with is this. Many of you are Trilogy graduates. You've been to FBI-LEEDA classes, had a great Zoom call with about 27 of our instructors yesterday, and they miss seeing their students. And so one of the things that I would ask you to do is, if you still have contact information for your favorite instructor, send them a text, give them a phone call, let them know that you're out there and you're still doing good things in spite of this daggone COVID-19 pandemic. That said, I hope you'll follow up on that. Next webinar, May 21st, we've got FBI-LEEDA instructor Jerry Thompson, again, one of our best, and the topic is Read to Lead, and it's going to be about a commitment to continued education and growth in law enforcement. And I'll give you a little clue. Jerry's just finishing his first book, and we're going to talk a little bit about his first book in addition to talking about Lead to Read. So this is Neil Moore with FBI-LEEDA. Thank you all for being here, and stay safe in the COVID environment, okay? Stay well.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay.